Okay, builders, we are going to tune a Kangaroo and a Sabertooth2x12 for a periscope lifter mech from IA. Here I've got it all connected with my limit switches and everything, going through some mag tags actually on the limit switches and the power and the I2C for the light kit, which is why you see two tags there. What I've done is I've crafted a little servo wire that is my serial connection that goes into the top of the Kangaroo there, and I'm going to have a picture of this separately in the tutorial so you can see what it's made of. But it's basically a servo wire that I popped the leads out of and stuck into a larger fitting, and then plug that into my board, and that connects into the laptop. So what we're going to do first here is we're going to actually connect to the Sabertooth. So when we hit connect, it's basically going to say, hey, where are you connecting to? And then that's when you got to tell it your COM port and your baud, which is 9600, because that's what the Sabertooth connects at. It'll default higher, so if it's giving you connection issues, that's your problem. So just take that to 9600, hit OK. It's going to connect, and it'll tell you right here that it's connected. And now it's downloading the latest tune from the Sabertooth for us to look at. So when that gets all downloaded, we can actually go look at some settings here. Like for example, what are our position settings? What is the minimum and maximum on the motor 1, which is my lifter? And then I have minimum and maximums on motor 2, which is the rotary. So for purposes of time, I'm going to do a tune on the first motor. So when you do a tune on the first motor, you're doing these independent because you're not doing it in mixed mode. So you want to make sure that you have your dip switches correct on the Kangaroo and the Sabertooth, which I'll have a picture of those two. And also, you want to make sure that you do not have a limit switch connected on one of the motors that you're not tuning. So for example, in this case, I'm all tuned up, but if you look in there, you'll see I've got limit switches right here and right there on the right side. So I'm going to pull out those limit switches because those are the limit switches for the rotary, because we're not tuning the rotary. And I've got the limit switches connected into the Kangaroo there on the left side, because the left side is motor 1 and the right side is motor 2. So you'll notice there are now no rotary switches connected. So now we can go ahead and tune this. If we didn't do that, it was going to give us an error and basically tell us that it could not tune because it detected a limit switch. Sounds kind of silly because we're using limit switches, but it's just how this software works. There are all kinds of little quirky things. So let's auto-tune. Well, if you do an auto-tune video from Dimension, they'll tell you, oh, push the button on the front of it. Nope, don't do that. Use Describe. It is much easier. So to tune it, what you're going to do is you're going to go to custom, actually live test, and it's going to give you the options that you can choose. And you haven't, now in this case, we're going to pretend we have not tuned it yet. So I'm going to click tune, and it's going to bring it up. Now it says not tuning right here, but look, it's got the channel selected and it's faded out because it won't get you that far yet. So you got to hit begin. I know, it doesn't sound logic, but here you go. So you hit begin, and then you got to tell it which way you're tuning. Are you going to do the teach distance, limit switches, or mechanical stops? In this case, I was doing mechanical stops, but I decided to go with limit switches, and I wired them back into the IA lifter using the switches that it came with. So you select that. Now it gives you the option up here to actually tell it, hey, we're going to tune channel 1 or channel 2. Well, channel 1 I know is my lifter, so that's what we're going to tune, and channel 2 is the rotary, so we got to deselect it. So now what we're looking at is channel 1 with limit switches. It's going to give us our positions here, which shouldn't have anything in it. We're not recording yet, and then we're going to hit continue. But before we do that, what I like to do is put that motor about halfway up the carrier manually, so it has somewhere to go. So then we're going to go back here, and we're going to hit continue, and it's going to give us a countdown. And it seems like it's going to take forever. You'll see that that's flashing now. And here we go. So this is what the tune looks like on the lifter when it's doing it properly. It's going to go through, it's hit the limit switches, Now it's going to start cycling. Important to note that when you do this, make sure you have a load on the lifter that's what you're going to have on it. So in this case, I've got the periscope on there, and it's measuring the amount of power that it takes to actually lift that thing. So that's why you want to have it on there when you do this test, or when you do this tune anyway. Now the Roo's doing all this on its own. And when it's all done, it'll stop. And then when you go back here, it'll tell you reboot required. That is a good sign. Reboot required is good, because if you've got a reboot on there, that means you did it right. So what you got to do is go back over to here, kill the power to your Sabertooth, because we're using a voltage here, so that killed that. And then we're going to unplug from here completely, okay? It's going to tell us, yeah, you unplugged everything. So we're going to go through and quit this. We're going to go back into describe here. So we're going to launch describe. I apologize because I closed that out too fast. So give it a second to boot right up. And that's okay. So we've launched describe, so now we're going to plug in the Sabertooth again. Now it knows the Roo's back on. We're going to power up the Sabertooth, because we need to juice the Sabertooth, so we got that back online. All right, and now we're going to go back in and connect. So we're going to connect to this. Then we're going to go here and say, oh yeah, are we at 9600? Yep. Okay. It is pulling the information down from the Kangaroo. And as soon as it's done, we can run a live test on it, because we've got our connection right. So there we go. So now what we can do is we can go over to live test. And now we don't have to tune it, because we've already done that. So we can do live position. And then it's going to say, hey, Kangaroo needs to be restarted. Cool. So you click OK. It reboots the Kangaroo. Well, now it needs to be homed. So when you hit OK, it's going to home it. There we go. And it says, are we using the nominal travel ranges? It's homing, yes. Well, travel is 0 to 759. 0 is your home position. 759 is the maximum line number before it hits the other switch. Hit yes. And now it gives us this really cool graph that you can actually move around. And when you do that, you have live control of this lifter, and you know that it worked. So that is a successfully tuned lifter right there. So that is how you tune a lifter. And guess what? You tune the rotary the exact same way, except you're using channel 2 instead of channel 1. You'll need to unplug your limit switches from channel 1, and you'll need to plug your limit switches back into channel 2 on that. Now, also, since I've already got the lifter tuned, I want to show you a couple things you want to make sure that you've got. And that's when you go to position screen and you look around on the channel 2 side or the 1 side, whichever one you use for the rotary, you need to make sure that at the bottom you click use limit switches, 1 limit switch only, okay? And in this case, what I've done is I've connected the limit switch on the rotary to limit switch number 2, which are the bottom 2 pins. You'll see they're exposed now, but I'm going to plug them back in. And then I'm going to run the tune scenario all over again, and then it'll populate these numbers on that side. So there's the numbers that we populated from our tune on channel 1, but these are the ones that were carried over from the previous tunes I did before. So there you are. So remember, you want this in independent mode. You want the Sabertooth in independent mode, not mixed. And you want to use limit switches, and on the rotary side, make sure you check this use 1 limit switch only check mark, because that's only one, there's only uses 1 limit switch. So my friends, that is how you tune with a Kangaroo. And I'm going to be putting more into tutorial here as far as where the dip switches are with some pictures, and show you this little cable that I created to get on there. I hope that you guys enjoy playing with this as much as I have, and it's a lot of fun to be able to control it and write your own animations. All right, take care everybody.